Hi, and welcome to this freshman writing workshop hosted by TEDU University and the English Language School. Today we're looking at body paragraphs. We're looking at agreeing and disagreeing. So agreeing and disagreeing are moves that you can make in an essay. So by moves, I mean like moves that you would make in a chess game or in a football or soccer match. So in a football or soccer match, you need to be able to pass the ball, shoot the ball, but you also should be able to head the ball. And if you can't head the ball, then you're not going to be a successful soccer player. So if you can't agree and disagree with people well in the proper way in an essay, you're not going to be a good essay writer. So when I use the word move in this lecture, please think about it as something similar to a chess move, or a certain move that you would make in a football or soccer match. So today we're looking at the idea of agreeing and disagreeing and how to make this move properly or correctly in an essay. The first step of making this move properly or correctly is paraphrasing the author or idea that you are agreeing or disagreeing with. You also need to represent them fairly. So this means that you use their words in a way that they would agree with. You don't take their words and use them in a way the author would think would be unfair. When you're agreeing with someone, it's not sufficient to say that you agree and that's the end of the story. You need to agree with more detail and more explanation. So if the author has given a good reason to support an idea, such as feminism, you read an article in your English 101 class about feminism, the author gives a good reason, you need to explain that reason more or give more details. We'll also talk about disagreeing with authors, articles. It's not enough to just disagree with someone, you need to explain the reasons for your disagreement. And then finally we'll look at how to agree and disagree with an idea or a person and do it at the same time. So, you should always think about an essay as a conversation. This is you and this is your teacher. So the essay is mostly a conversation between you and your teacher. But in class, you're going to read things by an author. So this author should give you an idea about a topic. So you're going to read something about feminism in English 101, and the author will give you some ideas. You need to formulate or create your own opinion based on those ideas. You will also have discussions in class with classmates. So you and your classmate will talk about an idea such as feminism. This should give you some new ideas, and then you're going to talk about them with your teacher. So you will convey them to your teacher via an essay. You will tell your ideas in essay form. So the essay is a conversation, and it's not just a conversation between you and your teacher, because you are responding to ideas from the articles that you read in class and the things that your classmates said. So before you tell your teacher your ideas, you need to explain the ideas that you are responding to. So you need to think about your essay as a conversation between three people. So let's say, for example, that you're writing an essay on feminism. First, you should identify what your classmates, what the author says about feminism. And then you will respond to those ideas and thoughts and give your opinions. This is the idea of agreeing and disagreeing. So that you take opinions, tell them to your teacher, and then say whether you agree or disagree with them. So if you don't have many ideas about the content of your essay, one of the good moves you can do is to think about who you agree with and why you agree with them, and identify people that you disagree with and why you disagree with them. So let's take a general essay topic that money is happiness, or money is an important part of happiness. So you think about people who agree that money is an important part of happiness, and why do they agree that money is important? think about people who disagree with the idea that money is an important part of happiness and why they disagree with that. So you might want to pause the video and think about groups and their reasons for agreeing with the essay topic. All right, agreeing or disagreeing with these guys. These, as you probably know, are Buddhists. Do you know anything about their opinions of money? Well, Buddhists are not the biggest fans of money. I believe that they would disagree with the idea that money is happiness. Buddhists don't tend to have a lot of money. Kind of tend to think that money is a bad thing, because generally money makes you want and need things, which in Buddhism is the opposite of happiness or contentment. So I know a bit about Buddhism from my own education. One of the books that got me interested in Buddhism was the novel Siddhartha by Hermann Hesse. I highly recommend it. It's a very short and easy to read novel. But let's say that I didn't know much about Buddhism, but I wanted to get a little bit more information. Well, I would just go on the internet here, Buddhism, Money, see what they have to say. First article, Time magazine. This is a reputable source, so this is a credible source that we could use. What Buddhism can teach us about money. Buddhism, which holds that wealth is temporary and no path to happiness. So Buddhism, which believes that money and the possession of things is temporary and does not lead to happiness, might not sound like the best source for money wisdom. Not so, says Ethan Nichtern, the prominent Buddhist teacher who has written a new book, The Road Home, on self-awareness and spiritual thinking. So, at first glance, this looks like a good piece of evidence to support my claim that Buddhism believes money is no path to happiness. But not so. This article is mostly about Ethan Nichtern's book, in which he describes how Buddhism and money can work together well. And we can know this based on just the first two sentences, but if you would scroll down and read a little bit more, you would see that's true. So it would be disingenuous for me to take this as a good representation of Buddhism. That means it would be unfair for me to do that. I can't just take one quote from an article that supports my idea when the majority of the article does not support my idea. Your teacher is going to look up this article and they're going to see that the majority of the article is not supporting what you say it does, so you're being unfair, and also maybe they will think that you didn't understand the article well, so it's not a good tactic. So we need to go back and find something else. We have the teachings of Buddha. And is this the website? Yeah, this website did a decent job of describing the Buddhist view of money. But I found an even better one earlier, where I got a really nice quote from Gautama Buddha. And he says, "One is the path that leads to material wealth. The other is the path that leads to nirvana, or a content happiness." And this is taken directly from a religious Buddhist text. So while it's not the best idea to base your ideas of an ideology on one quote, I know enough about Buddhism and to know that this is a reliable representation. So that's how I formulated, or how I would formulate my opinions on Buddhism if I didn't know so much about it. Do a little research, but it's important to represent that research fairly. So let's say that our thesis for the topic of money and happiness is I believe that money is an important part of happiness. I'm not saying money is happiness. It's just one important part. You need other things, of course, as well. So in my body paragraph, I would first want to introduce the topic with a topic sentence, and then I would like to explain the Buddhist view to set up my disagreement with them. So I need to first tell my teacher the view that I am responding to. They need to understand the opinion that I am responding to, and then I can respond to it. So many Buddhists tend to believe that money is not an important part of happiness because money leads to wanting and needing. Or many Buddhists tend to believe that money is not an important part of happiness. They believe that money leads to needing and wanting, which is the opposite of happiness. So basically the Buddhists are saying that money makes you greedy. So I've introduced the topic, explained very briefly what the Buddhist opinion of money is, and now I want to disagree with it. So in the template handout, which is in the link below, you'll find many phrases for disagreeing. I've just taken one here. I disagree with X's view that blah, 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 because as recent research has shown, or as common sense shows. So you're not just disagreeing, you're disagreeing and explaining why. So I agree with X's view, the Buddhist view. I disagree with the Buddhist view that money is not an important part of happiness because, and then I explain my reason. So this is the sentence I wrote. I disagree with the Buddhist view that money leads to greed, or needing and wanting. It's another way to say greed. I disagree with the Buddhist view that money leads to greed because, as common sense shows, there are many great philanthropists in the world. Philanthropists are people who donate a lot of money, rich people who donate a lot of money. For example, Bill Gates has donated over $35 billion. I found this on Wikipedia, which is not at all a greedy thing to do. So this is how you use this template. I disagree with X's view. So who are you disagreeing with? This could be the group of people, Buddhists. It could be an author from a text in your class or a text not in your class. It could be a classmate. It could even be the teacher themselves. So you can use this template to explain the idea you disagree with and then explain your reasons why you disagree with it. There are many other different templates on the handout. However, use each one creatively. Try to be creative. So here I used, my opinions differ with the Buddhist belief. So instead of saying I disagree with the Buddhist view, I use my opinion differs. Instead of using view, I use belief. I've also updated this as common sense shows. So as a simple Google search shows. Here I've made this statement more accurate to my to represent the ideas here. So when I found this fact about Bill Gates donating $35 billion, it was a very simple Google search. I just wrote in great philanthropists or great donators of money. And it showed me right away that there were many. So when we are disagreeing with people, we need to give the differing opinion. We need to give the opinion that's different. And then we need to say why we disagree with it. So we need to think about what their opinion on the topic is. Why do they have that opinion? And then why do you disagree with their reasoning, with their logic? So let's look at Notorious B.I.G.'s opinions on money and happiness. Notorious B.I.G. is a rapper from New York City in the 1990s, and he is famous for his song Mo Money, Mo Problems. Mo means more, so more money causes more problems. So he would disagree with our topic that money is an important part of happiness, at least in this song. So we've identified someone we agree with, Notorious B.I.G. So we agree that more money creates more problems, so money is not an important part of happiness. In the song, one of the lines is know, or you should know, that you'd rather see me die than to fly. So this is a bit like the Turkish concept of nazar, so when someone sees someone that they're envious of, it's very important to have your nazar bonjour to fight off those bad or jealous eyes. So this is what Notorious B.I.G. is saying in the song. He says, because I'm so rich and famous, there's so many people looking at me in a jealous or envious way, and it creates a lot of problems for me. So let's say that we have changed our thesis now. I believe that money is not an important part of happiness, as Notorious B.I.G. says. So, topic sentence, introduce the main idea, and explain the person's general opinion on the idea. One argument that money doesn't cause happiness is that money actually causes more problems, as the Notorious B.I.G. famously said. In his song, Mo Money, Mo Problems, Biggie, or the Notorious B.I.G., explains that because he is rich, people would rather see him die than to fly. So this is a direct quote from the song. In the song, he says, rather see me, but it doesn't make sense in this context, so I've bracketed it and wrote him. This is how you would change a word in a direct quote. You would bracket it, change that word. You often need to do that with pronouns. Now you can look at the template, the handout template, and find many different phrases for agreeing. I've just chosen one. X surely is right about blah, 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 because as he or she may not be aware or may not know, recent studies have shown that. So I've adapted this to our purposes. So again, you're explaining the group's opinion or the person's opinion, and then explaining why you agree with it in more detail. So he, the rapper, is surely right about his view, because as he certainly did not know at the time, he was later murdered. So the Notorious B.I.G. was murdered in kind of a bit of a gang war in the 90s. There was a big fight between the East Coast rappers and the West Coast rappers. They really didn't like each other. And because Notorious B.I.G. was the most famous rapper from New York City, he was one of the main targets. Later on, then also a West Coast rapper, Tupac, was murdered. So Biggie is surely right that more money equals more problems, as he was later murdered. And death is certainly not fun or happy. So again, try to be creative with these templates. Don't just copy and paste them. The purpose of the template is to show you the move. The move is to explain someone else's opinion and then explain why you agree or disagree with it. So instead of saying he is surely right about his view, I can say he is definitely correct about it. I could say he correctly claims that. So instead of using an adjective, I can use a verb. He correctly claims that. Or I can change the whole grammatical structure of the sentence. The author's statement that more money causes more problems is true. And I can move these around. But then don't forget your because. Okay, last part of the lecture. We're going to look at agreeing and disagreeing at the same time, and we're going to go back to our Buddhist friends here. So, agreeing and disagreeing at the same time. It's possible to agree with someone and disagree with them at the same time. You basically agree with them on one part of their opinion, but not on the other part of their opinion. So that's what the move we're making here in the first template is. Though I concede that, I insist that. So This template is saying, though I agree with the opinion of the Buddhists that money does cause greed, I still insist that, or I disagree that greed is a bad thing, for example. Although I agree with the Buddhists up to a point, so a little bit, I cannot accept their overall conclusion that greed is a bad thing, or that money causes greed and greed hurts the world and doesn't contribute to happiness. So I agree with the Buddhists up to a point. I agree with them a little bit. The last one here is more neutral, is more 50-50. I'm of two minds about the Buddhist claim that money is not an important part of happiness. On the one hand, I agree that money can lead to greed. On the other hand, I'm not sure if greed is necessarily a bad thing. So let's look at a sample section from a body paragraph that you could write. Though I concede that, I insist that. So I've changed it to be a little bit more simple, but these are nice words, concede and insist. These are good academic verbs that you should know and be familiar with. Though I agree that money can make a person greedy or desirous, meaning having a lot of desire or having wanting and needing a lot of things, I don't agree that having strong desires makes a person unhappy. To elaborate or to explain in more detail, to further explain, when people have strong desires to achieve a goal and then achieve that goal, the feeling of achievement usually makes them very happy, for example. And then I would try to find an example relevant to the discussions that we had in class with the teacher, an example that was related to a text in class, or something that one of my classmates said maybe. But I wouldn't use a personal example in this situation. So the main move that we looked at today was agreeing and disagreeing at the same time. These moves are a must in agree and disagree essays. So if you are in a football game and you cannot do a good header, then you can't participate in the corner kick. You're no use in a corner kick. So in agreeing and disagreeing essays, the things you've learned today are must-dos. You have to do them. However, they're still very useful in other essays as well, especially when you can't think about what to write. A very easy thing to do is to identify a group you agree with, explain their opinions, and add something to their opinions, or to think of a group you disagree with and explain why they're wrong. So they're very useful in opinion or persuasive essays. They're very, very useful in response essays, which you will find often in English 102. So find the template handout in the link below. Try to be creative with it. Understand why these moves are important. And good luck on your essays.